Hey, how's everybody doing? You're listening to the Free Thought Doctrine, Episode 3. This is Aaron Burr. I'm recording this out of San Diego, California.
And I'm Blake Lincoln from the snowy fields of northern Minnesota.
Nice. So, originally, I really wanted to talk about, or expand and talk about the lockdowns, because I was getting pretty hot over it, but I don't feel like talking about that. We could talk about that endlessly, and you guys already know how I feel about that. What I do want to talk about is, regardless if Trump pulls off staying in office or not, my question is, what about Trump made him unique, and will there ever be another Trump?
Well, that's a good question, and I think, regardless of the outcome, I think once Trump is gone, whether it be in 2 months or 4 years, there's going to certainly be a large vacuum in the Republican Party because he identified with so many people on a different level than a regular politician could. Mainly, he wasn't bought and paid for. He was self-financed. He was there for himself. He was there, well, not for himself, but he ran for himself. He wasn't answering to anybody else. He really, he's a billionaire with nothing else to lose. He didn't have to run for president, but he wanted to. And that's something that I just really find rare, if non-existent in politics, is somebody that isn't bought and paid for these days, unfortunately.
Well, because the fact of the matter is that whether it's a conservative Republican or a liberal Democrat, they are bought and paid for.
Yeah,
Like,
totally. It's all
they're
big
all bought and paid
business,
for.
and big business controls the majority of politicians. That might rub people the wrong way, but that's the reality on
No,
on both sides, not just Democrat or Republican. It's both.
it's definitely both, and I do find it a little disheartening when I come across people that say, like one side is angels and it's all on the other side, and
No,
it's not the case at all.
no, and that's the game they like to play. Is they like to turn all of us against each other. Well, they both sides, once they get to Washington, it's business as usual. Everybody's making money, but that's why I don't think there'll ever be another Trump, because he really put an end to that. He was really a guy that he had the ability to stand up for all of us and do the things he wanted to do because he wasn't owned by anybody. And I think that's really what the establishment really could not stand about him. They couldn't blackmail him. They couldn't hold his feet over the fire on anything. He really was his own man, and I don't think we'll ever see that again.
Well, what I found pretty fascinating about Trump over the years was the fact that even people that I would suspect that would not be, pro Trump were, right? And one example I have is, I want to say about a year and a half ago, I was on a trip in Japan, and I was in a bar, and there were two expats there, and just having friendly conversation with them, and it was pretty clear that they were to the left on most issues. Like, it was just pretty clear. We talked about some things. That's where they came out on things. I mean, these are guys, in their late 50s, early 60s, had been expats in Japan for 20 plus years. One guy was a guide for Mount Fuji. They came off as, you kind of your mainstream liberals. But they were very like international, and one thing came to another, and we started discussing Trump, and it surprised me because they were like, the term they use, and I've heard it before, but I've used it since, is like one of them made the claim like, yeah, Trump is the great disruptor, right? Like he
Yep.
disrupted the normal flow of power politics in Washington, and they started talking about the trade deals and how it benefited them in Japan, and that benefited both sides, meaning like foreign countries and America with these different they started talking about these different trade policies, and they're like very surprised and supported him, and that kind of surprised me because when the Trump came up in the conversation, I thought it was about to be a bash Trump session. Like I totally 100% expected them to just start bashing him, but they actually had a lot of positive things to say. And then that was one night, and then a second night I was out there, and there was a individual who was also from the States, and he was a younger person around my age, and he actually worked for the State Department. And I want to say one of those same individuals from the night before was there. And here you go, a guy, like I said, like he clearly is of the left. It's just the way his views on other things. But when you start talking to the State Department guy, he started bringing up, or that guy started bashing Trump, right? Like he was like, oh yeah, I'm always one tweet away from this or that or blah, blah, blah. And then that guy started defending. He goes, no, you don't understand. He started saying some of the same things, like, hey, no, look, it's the great disruptor. Like it was time to have that, in the government. And it's only benefited, these policies only benefited. If you talk about policies, so once again, and now you have this guy, this expat in his, maybe mid 60s, arguing with this younger cat in the State Department, right? And it was just a weird dynamic, like you wouldn't expect to see with a quote unquote Republican in power, right? Like it was one of those things. And we've talked about this before, how the GOP is, how they're expecting basically all these Trump supporters, all 74 million of them, to be, reliable Republican voters, right? So the thing is, go ahead.
What you were going to what you were talking about. The reason he did pick up independents and Democrats was because a lot of those voters were from, the working class, not just white collars, but blue collar workers. And that's what the Democrat Party used to represent. They used to represent the American worker. They do not anymore. And that's, he really was for the American worker. That's, everybody has different feelings when you hear, make America great again. The left likes to say it's racist dogma, etc. But really what make America great again meant was make American opportunity great again, make America industry great again, give Americans a chance again. And for 4 years, he really did the most help to the American middle class than any president that I've seen in my lifetime.
For sure. And kind of like what I was saying was, the next Republican is not going to have the clout when it comes to the American worker as he does. And the reason I say that is, these Republicans expect all these new Republicans to stay on board, right? But the fact that they are basically abandoned Trump at this point, right? So a lot of those voters will either return to the Democrat Party or vote independent or not vote at all. I think that's the reality of the situation.
Well, and then you have to consider too that there's a lot of diehard conservatives that will not forget how the GOP treated Trump during this time. They completely abandoned him. And I think it would be increasingly foolish for the GOP to just expect these voters to bend the knee and just go back to supporting the party at all costs. I really think it's going to be a lot different than that. I really don't. I don't see a scenario in my head where they are just going to get all these voters to come to their side no matter what. They're going to have to work for it. And again, like you were alluding to, I don't know if there's anybody that has that same, use the term swag, that swagger that Trump had. He just, he had it. He had the, what do you want to say? The stamina, the just the ability to want to do it. He had the drive and the passion to do it. And the fact is that he actually cared. And that's so rare in modern politics to see that.
I totally agree. I honestly do not see a new Trump or outsider coming back into the field. Like I don't see it. I think it's business back to usual.
Yep, the game is back on. The checkerboard has been reset. It's back to making money and business as usual. And unfortunately, until we can't predict the future. It can be hopeful, but right now, it's hard to say if there'll ever be a figure like Trump again in American politics, because he really did.
He changed the game.
He ruined their game.
He tried that's to better. Anyway. That's better. He
did a great job of it for 4 years, but the establishment is large and it's very big, and it's hard to completely take over or get rid of. The swamp is vast, and
the swamp is vast, and the water is deep.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I've heard different opinions out there in terms of whether it be this next cycle or if it might be 4 years from now, depending on what happens. But some names have been thrown out there, and I've heard Don Jr.
Yeah, maybe.
I know you have you have your opinions on him. I think that he does. I think he's more conservative than Trump. I don't know if he's smarter than Trump, but he definitely is more conservative. And you know what? It's just this thought just hit me. You want to know what my problem though is with Don Jr.? Even though he says all the right things, he does have passion too. He does, and I know this is going to sound weird to some people, but I don't know if he's dating or married or engaged to Kimberly what's her
Guilfoyle.
name? Yeah. And I know a lot of conservatives that love her, right?
No, but I know who her ex-husband is.
That's my point. Is her ex-husband's Gavin Newsom, right? Gavin Mussolini Newsom, and my problem is I don't know if I trust her, right? Because how are you married to the one of the biggest bureaucrat status that is alive? You know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of weird to me. That she moved to the right, and now she's with Don Jr., and she has a very strong conservative following. There's some people that I know have been saying they want her to work for Newsmax and stuff, but I personally don't trust her.
To be fair to her, she was on Fox and stuff before she met Don Jr. and all of that. But yeah. I think it was, I can't speak on their, personal relationship, obviously, but it does seem to be a little opportunistic.
Exactly. And then, I've heard other names like Ted Cruz, and I've always been a Ted Cruz fan. And again, I think Ted Cruz says a lot of the right things and stuff. But then look at who he's married to. He's married to what, an ex Goldman Sachs executive.
Yep. Heidi Cruz was a nice banker on Wall Street.
Yeah, so there's what we're saying, and there's our point. Is like even the some of the names of people that I feel like I could get behind at some point. It's like they're not like how Trump was completely free of these connections, right?
No.
The left went after him. The Democrats and the left went after him for all 4 years, right, on the Russian collusion, trying to get him on any kind of connection he had, and they completely failed at it because he had no connections, right? Not like these other people were like, okay, yeah, I like this person. Oh, well, they're married to this person who's connected to this and that, and blah blah blah. And
No, he
it
didn't
was,
care.
yeah,
He fought him
yeah,
every
he
step
did.
of the way. He fought him.
I mean, to his dissenters, I would say they didn't, it came to a matter of style, right? They didn't like his style, the way
Well,
he said things.
that
But
could
when
be a whole nother
that could be
podcast.
a whole nother podcast. But what I'm saying is, they will discount everything you just said, right? They'll
Yeah.
discount everything you just said about how, they think he's in it for himself completely. They don't buy into. They think there are connections there somewhere, right? They
Well, I
actually
mean,
believe in the Russian
why
collusion.
else would a billionaire living on the coast in Florida give up that lifestyle to run for the most stressful position in the entire world? I mean, what other motivation would there be? I mean, you think he just did it for the heck of it? Like most people, I think, in that situation, like, you know what? I'm in my 70s. I'm a billionaire. I've got grandkids. I'm going to enjoy my golf game and enjoy the rest of my life into retirement. But the thing about Trump is I think he just likes to fight. He likes to win, especially winning. You
Yeah.
hear him say that a lot, and he did it quite often. But I think he really just wanted to try to change things. And he was speaking about that. There's several interviews of him going back, back into the 80s, where he's even talking on Oprah saying, Oprah asked him straight up, like, would you ever consider running for office? And Trump's answer, I'm paraphrasing, but he was like, no, I don't think I will. Not unless things were to get so bad that I thought I could make a difference somehow. And that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think that was 30 years ago. But
Yeah, 3 years ago.
in those interviews, though, he actually says a lot of the same things that he ran on. Right? He was talking about
Yeah.
China and trade policy, and and these stupid politicians, like not looking out for America. Right?
He's been consistent since day one. Whether
Yeah,
you like him or hate him, he's been consistent.
exactly. Right. So, again, when you look at policy, he did a lot. He did way more, I would say, in his first 4 years, policy wise, than Obama did. Right. So when it came to accomplishments and winning, I mean, he did do a lot of that. Right.
And I think that's actually what, now you mentioned the he who must not be named,
Yeah.
Barack Obama. I don't, if we didn't have 8 years of Barack Obama, I'm not sure Donald Trump would have ever considered running for office. I think that
That's a
was one of the
fact.
main reasons he did run, was because of Barack Obama.
Oh, that's a definite fact. And not that the last straw, I think, was that correspondence dinner where Obama was basically trashing on Trump and Trump was in the crowd.
Yeah.
And you see Trump's face, right? And he's like
Mhm.
making comments about how he would never run or he would never win and all this. And a lot of people will say that it was at that moment in time where he finally put his foot down and was like, yeah, I'm going to run and I'm going to win. And he did.
Yeah, Obama threw down the gauntlet, and I don't think, for better or worse, I don't think Trump would ever back down from a challenge. So I think he did take that personally, and he was like, "Oh, you want to bet?"
Exactly.
So yeah, I think you're right. At that point, the game was on.
For sure, for sure. And really, Trump has been the anti-Obama, right? He's just been the exact opposite of him. And
He's reversed it, reversed a lot of his major policies.
he has. He definitely has.
Literally
And
done the opposite of everything Obama ever did.
exactly. And Obama's policies were, 100% statist, right? They were all about activism in the government and big government programs. And then Trump comes around and for 4 years reverses as many of them as he can.
He done
So,
more in 4 years than I've seen any president, Democrat or Republican, do in 8.
exactly. You know, if he doesn't get to pull off another 4 years, it's you could only wonder what he would have pulled off in the next 4 years, right?
Oh, that's why they were so desperate to get rid of him. They couldn't have that.
Exactly, and that's why they set up the system where, there, there's never. So I guess that's my next kind of. Well, I kind of asked that question earlier, but will there ever be another Trump, or at least another outsider? And I say, I don't want to say never, because anything is possible, but I would say no, at least not for a very long time.
I have to agree. I trying to think of people, and I don't know anybody who has that kind of background or that kind of swagger about them that could pull it off. I mean, yeah, there's other billionaires like what's his name, Michael Bloomberg.
Yeah,
But he's not likable. Nobody knows who he is, and the people that do know him don't think very highly of him.
what about what's that guy? Cuban?
Mark Cuban.
Yeah. He's talking about running.
I mean, if Trump could do it realistically, Mark Cuban could run. I don't know.
I don't
I
think.
think yeah, the problem with Cuban is he doesn't have the star factor that Trump had. Like, for example, I think one of the biggest things Trump had going for him was he was already a celebrity for the most part, and everybody already knew him from,
Apprentice,
Celebrity Apprentice, and his other ventures, and he was already a star. I mean, he was in almost every single rap song I could think of when I was a kid.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing with Mark Cuban, and granted, I'm not some Mark Cuban expert, but to me, it doesn't seem like he has the same spine that Trump has. Like, I don't know if he could put up with the pressure that Trump put. Like, Trump probably put up with more pressure in that office than any other human being to hold that office, outside of maybe Lincoln. You know what I'm saying?
He was fighting off people in his own cabinet.
Exactly.
The knives are out from all sides.
Exactly.
But usually that's what happens when you're a great leader. There's always people trying to take your spot. That's just part of it.
It's part of the whole thing, yeah. It's just how it is. So, yeah, I don't know.
It's hard to say.
Now, what do you think about this? And I think this guy screwed up in by who came out for. But what about The Rock?
Oh God, no. No.
You don't think so?
I mean, yeah, he has the charisma and everything. What woman doesn't love The Rock?
Yeah.
He seems to be a very nice guy. I don't know him personally, obviously, but the thing about Dwayne Johnson is he's Hollywood. It's
yeah. Well, Reagan was Hollywood too.
Who?
Reagan was Hollywood too.
Right, but that was a different era, though.
Yeah.
This is everything in Hollywood is fake and manufactured.
True.
All the way down to the personality. You don't know how these people are really like.
Very true.
Everything in Hollywood is just so fake and plastic. I don't know if I could get behind Dwayne Johnson running for anything. He could probably, now that I think about it, he'd probably get a big following. But when it comes down to policies, really, like when Trump ran, he actually he laid it out what he wanted to do. This is what we're going to do. I mean, theoretically, at some point, if he were to run, Dwayne Johnson would have to come up with a plan of what his vision for the country besides just smiling.
Well, but what I'm trying to say is, I'm not saying I would support him, because I'm telling you right now, I 100% would be against him.
Oh, no, I would.
I mean, I don't ever foresee myself being behind him, and part of that is the reason is he came out so hard for Biden, right?
Again, but
and it's not necessarily that he came out for Biden, but it's that he came out for big government policies You know what I'm
Again,
saying?
but like going back to what I just said, that's the Hollywood machine. It's all fake and plastic, you
Yeah,
know. Oh, I have to be this way, otherwise I won't get movie roles.
true. Yeah. But I
And
think, I think it would have been way more ballsy and it would have shown way more of a backbone had he came out for Trump. I think
yeah,
it would have been, somewhat revolutionary in that Hollywood sense, right?
and maybe he genuinely doesn't like Trump, or maybe he really is a Democrat. That's fine.
Yeah.
But at some point, if he were to run, he would actually have to
Stand behind policy.
stand behind a policy. Like, yeah, again, we argued that Trump was already a household name. That's true. But when he ran, he was a businessman with a business background, and he had a plan. He laid it out of what he wanted to do for the country. The Rock would have to do the same thing, and it can't be, just generic things. It has to be specific things that he would fix. But again, you pointed out to Reagan, everybody, when Reagan said he was going to run for governor, nobody took him seriously. Oh, he's just an actor.
Yeah.
So am I saying it's impossible? No.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean,
who's to say?
Schwarzenegger was a governor of
Right,
California.
exactly.
He was a terrible governor, but he was a governor of California.
That's an interesting state you guys got over there on the coast.
Oh, we could do a whole episode on that, right?
That's true too. Yeah.
Maybe we should. Maybe we'll do that next time. But we're talking about celebrity. We're talking about policy, and let's touch on one last topic before we go for a couple minutes here. And this election, all right, whether Trump does, remain in office or not, this election, I think, was all, even though, like we've just said, how he's done so much policy-wise in the last 4 years than any other president, at least in our lifetimes, right? Yet, people voted against him, right? So I think it was all, this election for a lot of people came down to personality and not about policy. And it was a personality election.
Yes, a lot of people voted against him. Even my dead grandpa probably voted against him. But anyway, yeah, you're right. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, and it'll be a hard-fought battle from here. It's tough to say what's going to happen in the next 4 years. Literally anything could happen. I would expect, business as usual, really. It's Washington back to its big government roots, which is what they all like.
Oh, yeah, and I definitely agree. The war machine will be back in gear. We'll probably be bombing Syria here in the next year if all this goes down the way it's looking at might. And the status quo is back in power for sure. That's a fact. So, Unfortunately, because... hey, why vote on policy? You can vote on personality, right? So
that kind of represents our whole culture, doesn't it? Where we just kind of seem to, this person looks nice, or it seems to be more of a personality contest now. It's all based on what somebody looks like now.
Well, I mean, you can make that point too about Obama, right? Like that
exactly.
Election was personality too. Right, and what people quote unquote looked like, right?
He's so young and handsome. What a nice smile. Vote for him.
Forget the massive expansion of government under him, but he spoke well with a teleprompter.
And again, that's something that could play into somebody like The Rock's advantage.
For sure, yeah.
Smile for the camera and say this.
Yeah, I know we're sounding pretty cynical, but it's just...
yeah.
I guess it's right, at least as of right now, it's kind of the situation that the whole country's in, right? So, but, I mean, who knows? Who knows? Who knows?
You got to try to stay positive as best you can. Nobody can predict the future.
Exactly.
We'll see what happens, but... it'll be interesting to see. I really don't think there'll ever be another Trump. I think This was a unique point in American history, that is for sure.
And on that note, I totally agree with that. So that's all I really got. You got anything else?
I don't have anything off the top of my head. I would say let us know in the comments who you think would be a good presidential candidate that's a non-politician. What do you guys think? Let us know.
Yeah, let us know. Do you think an outsider can pull this off again with either party, really? So, yeah, let us know in the comments. Other than that, you've been listening to the Free Thought Doctrine, and we'll catch you guys later.